Good afternoon, America, the greatest country on earth where hope springs eternal. Today, we're going to be talking about strengthening bonds and building resilient relationships. And we have our relationship expert extraordinaire, direct from New York City, which I don't know if that's good or bad. I guess it depends. But let's welcome Anna Morgenstern.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And we have a bunch of special guests. We have some female active duty and veteran service members in our audience today. Just before we dive in, I'll just kind of frame up some information. As we all know, relationship status and relationship stress is one of the biggest drivers in mental health issues, particularly in females who have dealt with trauma, military sexual trauma, that sort of stuff. Combat veterans are 62% higher chance of divorce. And if both spouses are military, one of the statistics that we found very interesting is that if both spouses are military, you actually face a higher divorce risk, which is something I would have expected the exact opposite. But it's about 5% higher if both spouses are service members. And female service members are more likely to divorce if the female spouse is a service member and the male spouse is a civilian. So with that, nothing but grim statistics, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to have this podcast, because we're going to change their trajectory. I had the opportunity to do a podcast with Anna, and we found that we both had this interest in reality TV, and so I love reality TV. I love studying human nature. I love looking at how people approach life with their mindset, what their self-awareness is, how their emotional intelligence is. I think when you're running the kind of program that I run, where it's about improving the overall holistic health and well-being of our military, veteran, first responders, that it's really important to understand root cause. Everybody talks about root cause, but not a lot of people understand what it actually means. And so reality TV is I like to do it to hone my skills. So I like to be able to predict what's going to happen before it happens based on what I see. Sometimes you never know because of the way they edit these shows, but it is kind of interesting to see, people's character and compatibilities and things like that. So Ann and I kind of bonded over that. I kind of weird that way, but with that, I'm going to throw it to Anna and have her fully introduce the wonderful human being that she is and the services that she provides that can really help people.
Thank you. And honestly, I feel very honored to even speak to this community. I have so much respect for people that are in the armed services. And so thank you for everything that you all do. And obviously, we need to get the divorce rates down. I work with people, mostly I work with single people or people that have been divorced, are looking to date. As someone who's newly married, I feel like I'm stepping into more of the relationship space as I have more experience in my own life. But my overall goal is to help people that have a mentality that's really negative around dating, get out of that and get out of their own way to find a really loving, happy relationship, to stop any kind of limiting beliefs that they have about themselves. It's funny when I speak to so many women that it doesn't matter if they're the most beautiful or if they're the skinniest or if they're this or if they're that. Everyone has insecurities, whether they are real or not. It feels very real to us. And I just always wanted to help women, especially, to overcome some of those mental battles that they have, or the story that we keep telling ourselves that we're not good enough for that. This is the best we can get, is someone that treats us mediocre at best, which is just not okay. That's really how I started my business in New York, because I used to live in San Francisco where there are more men than women. And you felt it as a woman because we were the, hot supply. There were as many women, so men had to step up and treat us well. In New York, there's more women than men. And because of that, the women, we feel it. We feel like the men know that there are less of them, they're in demand. And it's, navigating these kinds of these kinds of things. It's tough. It's really tough dating when you have more women than men in your city. So just helping women understand who's really going to be a good fit for them, overcome any challenges that are outside themselves as well. And yeah, on the relationship stuff, I love to listen. I'm not, like I said, I'm not licensed therapist, which is probably good because I can give you real advice. I'm not, I'm tough love, and I try not to walk on eggshells with people. Like I'll rather tell people exactly how things are so we can just move past it.
No, I just realized that I'm the only guy on this call. So I'm gonna shut up and I'm gonna turn it over to Brittany, and just introduce yourself a little bit. And then when you're introducing yourself, kind of talk about your relationship history, or like what is it that you try to improve on in your life when it comes to relationships?
My name's Brittany. I was in the Marine Corps. I am now in Oklahoma. I started having abusive relationships in the military. It started in the Marine Corps. And after I got out of the Marine Corps and came back home and everything, I really tried seeking out, the good guys and everything else. And I ended up in a position where I got married. And 6 months into my pregnancy, he ended up going to prison for attempted murder, strangulation, and with the intent to kill. It was definitely a really, really hard battle. After losing my husband, to this like abuse and everything else and going to prison, my brother ended up committing suicide 2 days before I gave birth. So after that, it's just been like a really, really hard struggle for me to be able to really trust anybody. Um, the man that I married, the first time that my mom even saw him with a beer in his hand, she was almost in shock because he just gave off this aura and this presence that he was just so almost perfect. Like the thought that he even drank just sounded crazy to my mom, which we're a family of drinkers. Like there was no judgment. But so yeah, for me, I it's really great being medically retired from the military and going through all the struggles that I've been through, because I have persevered through so much. And I feel like I'm such the strong, independent woman. I've been through 55 surgeries, and just all these different things. And then I always feel like I'm trying to give this energy that like you can do anything. Like look at all the stuff that I've been through. I've got so many people that I've met thanks to JW that have just like shown me that I don't have anything to complain about. There are so many people out here struggling with so many battles. So yeah, it's been really hard for me to be able to find somebody, because people kind of link on to like my positive energy and everything I've been through, and I persevere through so much. And I feel like people take that and they see, well, how much can I put her through? So that's my story.
All right, Beth and Monica, you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yes. Hi everyone. My name is Monica Boyd, and Beth is on the side. Hi. I am the lead facilitator with Project Refit Sisters in Arms. Project Refit is a nonprofit organization where we make a point to create a safe space for our veteran, military community, and first responders, by opening up and allowing it to dispel that myth that seeking out mental health care or saying that getting care is a no-go, right? Sometimes in our community, it used to be frowned upon. Now, the conversations is ever flowing. But to do more of that, we have to create these spaces. We have to let people be comfortable in being uncomfortable and having conversations. Everyone has a different journey in life, different pains, different struggles, whether they're single, married, widow, divorcee, things of that nature. And so what we do here right now, because we have a group about 9, 10 women here that we have, and where we have settings where we're doing various indoor and outdoor activities. And then we engage in having open, transparent conversations during our fireside chats. So we believe the path of healing is being able to start the conversation and then being strong enough, utilizing the bison philosophy of facing your storm and moving forward through it to be able to get through on that healing journey. So Beth, here's our amazing male spouse. I have Army. I have Jeannie. Jeannie's walking around here, Marine Corps. And I did introduce you guys to Vanessa Jenkins, who's an Air Force veteran, but we call her Mama Star. We have, again, a plethora of ladies running around here doing various activities. So you may see some pop in and out of the field, the frame. That's it. If you have anything to say?
No, my name's Beth. I'm, not a veteran, but I'm very lucky and honored that I get to, bring this space to these women in a place of healing. I met my husband after he was injured in Iraq. I was a USO volunteer. We met at Walter Reed 20 years ago. And since then, we've kind of always worked in the veteran community and always tried to give back and pay it forward. So that's our main goal.
No, yeah, and I've met Beth through social media because she has this Marine Corps thing about crayons, and
Just a little.
Oh, no.
she posts some quite outlandish things, but it's I think sense of humor is
we
something we need to really lean in on more. I think people take themselves way too seriously, and I think we as just a general rule, because we are such a divided country politically, if people had a better sense of humor, it would go a much longer way. And also I've kind of pitched Anna on the things that she does. Like, I think there's a lack of resources, good resources available to military spouses, especially women, when it comes to this kind of stuff. And I think, like, her approach, we might have a new cottage industry going here. So I'm going to let her kind of run it from here, and I'll only chime in if you ask me questions about what it means to be the husband. All right, take it away.
Okay. Well, something that, Brittany and I were discussing, I thought was really interesting is, she was saying how she has such kind, good energy. Like, people see the green flags in her. And so it's not that you are necessarily doing anything wrong where you're attracting bad people. It's that they recognize the green flags in you. And, like, it's when people are looking for, I don't want to say victim, but when they're looking for someone that they know will, take a lot of crap from them, they look for certain characteristics. So it's up to you, because you can't control what anyone else does.
Yeah.
You can only control what you do and how you respond to situations and how you properly screen and vet people. And one thing that I love to have clients do, or anyone in my network, is, really look at the last, 5 or even 10 years of your relationship history and just find those common patterns and try to find exactly what these men had in common, the good ones and the bad ones, because we want to figure out, how do we spot red flags. And it could be something like love bombing, like, oh, they're just come on so strong in the beginning and it feels so good to be around them. And then after, a couple of weeks of that, all of a sudden they start showing, some darker colors of themselves. And that happens a lot. I've even dated guys like this in my past too, where they seemed great. And then all of a sudden they're, showing signs of being controlling and telling me what to wear and who I can hang out with. And luckily that happened when I was in I don't think I was 21 yet, I think I was 20. And I think as women, typically we go through a bad situation and we recognize, okay, we're not going to go through that again. But for some of us, we give people too much of the benefit of the doubt. So that's why we have to do these exercises where we look for the red flags and look for those common denominators. And one thing I think women specifically have a tough time with is advocating for themselves. We're kind of scared to speak up. And when we feel that someone is mistreating us, or we have questions about someone's intentions, especially if it's early on in dating, we don't ask the questions up front. Like, I mean, I always think about, what would a man do? A man would just ask the questions, didn't like the answer, see you later, have a nice day. But for some reason, for us women, we tend to say, oh, he didn't say the perfect thing, but no one's perfect. We dance around things that we don't like rather than being more black and white with things. So that's another thing I tell my female clients. What would a man do? Would a man put up with this? No? Okay. Don't take it just because we're the more empathetic ones.
I feel like I run into like problems with that though, because like sometimes I try so hard to stick to my boundaries. Hey, this is unacceptable for me. This is what I want. This is what I need. And then I'll get a series of, oh, but how hard I'm trying, or oh, but there's always this, well, this is going on right now and I can't because of these reasons. And you know how important this is to me. And so like I'm always getting pulled back in and people are using my empathy and like,
It's the
my
nurturing.
kind-heartedness.
It's the nurturing maternal aspect of it.
Yeah.
We as women, we were built to be emotional creatures. That's naturally innate in us. There's nothing wrong with that. However, you setting your boundaries and you sticking to it. And that's individual choice. That, and there's nothing wrong. It's just because, like you said, men will not adhere to, like, when it's something, they'll be quick to cut off or jump off. But here we are willing to give grace.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking
Yeah,
for. Grace.
giving grace, first, second, third chances.
Thing that they do that we like, and we're like, oh, he does this.
Right.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
concentrate on the good, not the bad. But it's not just like romantic relationships. It's all of our relationships.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
the people that come in our lives, whether work, if they like we present a certain type of person who wants to help and everything else, that's more likely to be taken advantage of.
Yes.
Whether it's in friendships, workplace, and or relationship.
Family too.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Family as well. So you're not wrong in feeling, you didn't do anything wrong. It's not you. It is the natural ability. It's what we were. It may sound weird to say. I don't want to say it's what we were born with. It's just who we are as women. This is what was given to us. We are nurturers. We are maternal. We are loving, kind. When it comes to matters of the heart, we are more yearned to that. Men are the gatherers, the hunters, the fighters. Their mindset is different. They're wired different. We're wired different. It does not mean we are better or they are better. It's just we go a different way. We look at life. We look at relationships. We look at people differently. But the thing is, what are we going to the same destination?
Yeah.
That's it.
We teach people how to treat us, and
Mhm.
sometimes that's not.
That's very. I always say that.
A lot of crap from people, so we've already taught them.
Yes, ma'am.
That you're willing to accept this or
Just
accept
one more
that.
time.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Yes.
So,
Be careful. Be careful.
Wannabe husband wants to ask a question.
hey, I just ask questions. Like I wrote a book on everything I know about women. It's all blank pages. Okay, so Yeah, so like you mentioned that, like you're sort of in it together, and so like one of my core beliefs as a man is that I believe that you have a partner, and there's different levels of that partnership, right? You have the emotional part, you have the sexual part, you have the life part, and conflict resolution part, and so. Like one of the things I had before I got married was I don't want to say rules, but I had my beliefs that, okay, there's things in life that you can argue over, and there's things in life that don't matter at all in the big picture. Like which way the toilet paper rolls over, does it roll over the top or underneath, or how do you fold the towels on the rack in the bathroom? Where do you put your dirty clothes? Things like that.
She's like, no, that's an argument. That's worth it. No.
That can be learned though.
Yeah. You girls train us really well, so we get those things out of the way. And then if you're going to have kids, what are the rules of engagement for raising kids? Because like everybody knows, as soon as you have a kid, the kid's going to go to the mom or the dad and ask for permission, and then if they get shut down, they automatically go to the other parent and decide, if we're going to try, if this one doesn't work, I'm going to try that one, and they pit you against each other. It's like one of those things that I think when you're a kid, it's like you're born with this innate radar of how to pit your parents against each other.
Mhm.
But
I don't think people have
having,
those conversations. I feel like people don't really have those conversations anymore. Like before you get pregnant, before you marry somebody, have that conversation. This is how I want to raise my children. This is what I see. And
well, that was my question, is like, do you guys, do you like to any of you, do you have those conversations with your potential partner? Like, I wouldn't even get into a long-term relationship with someone unless I understood, like, if it was going to lead to marriage, if we were on the same page on the big stuff. Like if we aren't on the same page with the big stuff, then the little stuff is not going to matter. That was my question. Like, do you guys, do women think like that?
They should.
If you don't mind, I'm gonna go. So I find it very interesting for that, because a lot of this conversation is just starting to kind of really come on board. Personally, I kind of want to say, and this is my personal belief, since the COVID shutdown, when people was forced to look at each other all day and every day, conversations were had, and that was the surge of the podcast and things like that. Culturally speaking, with society, these were not conversations that came to be. Especially for us ladies, we were all raised from a little girl. You get married and have 2.5 kids, and you have a house with a white picket fence and all of that. Correct me if I'm wrong. Barbie, strawberry shortcake, like all of these, the Cabbage Patch Kids, like all of these Cinderellas. Yes, I'm dating myself. Don't judge me.
Wow, no one's judging here. That's the rule.
But plain house, it was ingrained in all of us that the end goal for little girls is to get married, have children. Like,
They were more gender oriented.
well, yes, but it's just, again, it was still, the end goal was to be married and have kids. That was what you were fulfilling. Yeah, that was your purpose in life, your identity. But as time went on, and if you've seen how things have shifted, a lot of us have become more independent, and that affects when it comes to dating and marriage and things of that nature. And it says, so what does marriage look like? What does happiness look like? For myself, I recently got into a committed relationship with another fellow veteran. We what met in our first unit, our first deployment, things like that. However, comma, he is twice divorced. I never married. We see life a little bit different. However, the difference is with us, which I find amazing, is we're able to have healthy debates and conversations now. And I think because of like both of our experiences and also the fact that both of us have started our healing journey, we're able to communicate effectively. What is it that we want long term? What is it that we want short term? What does our triggers look like? Do you know? And are we willing to be patient with each other? You know, I had a couple episodes where, or instances where I think I texted him or called him and he didn't respond fast enough. I almost flipped my lid. I know. Go, don't judge me. But but it was expectations, But instead of him flipping out, I had to take a moment to understand why was I so connected to with this phone where it bothered me he wasn't able to connect so quickly, and it went through because of a abusive relationship that I had in my past that kicked off it with the phone, right? So I was able to explain that to him, and we was able to have that healthy conversation, and it was that back and forth, and it was just moving forward. Don't mean to sound long-winded, but I just think when you are able to put everything on the table, be willing to be transparent with each other, and be willing to be patient in that journey
and hear each other
and
out.
hear each other. Yeah, it's
and come to some middle ground.
yes. So
Yeah,
that is my piece.
Yeah, I would say I wouldn't use the word transparent. I think vulnerable is a good word. You got to be willing to be vulnerable, and it's a lot harder for men to be vulnerable than women, I think, just in general.
Some women, it takes a minute for women, or anyone really, to get there, to get to that place where they can be vulnerable with you.
Hence why we have these retreats. This is Yvette, by the way.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
Marine Corps veteran. She's a Marine as well. We have several women who, again, grew up, we grew up in the military. So we were taught to be rough and tough and push through, not to show our emotions and things of that nature, which is like an internal struggle when naturally that is what, that's basically like in our DNA type of to be emotional, be nurturing, to be kind. But the military is a little bit of an opposite in a sense. So you have that. So when we have these retreats, we just say, hey, we want you to be comfortable. We want you to rest. We want you to relax. We want you to be okay to be vulnerable.
And self-reflect.
Yeah. But everything's always connected. So
I guess I kind of just sat over here on this side of the camera because I guess you pose an interesting question regarding finances and stuff. I would say I'm married for 4 years now. I met my husband in 2021 and we got married like 8 months later. Where's the camera there? So even before getting married, even though dating, first of all, okay, I was married once before a long time ago, divorced, and been 10 years independent, handling business, got our child, or my child really, because he just went off. He's not in the picture. He chose not to be in the picture. So I've been managing, dual roles, all kinds of roles, my professional, my parent, both parents. I had to be, do what I can, plus my community. This woman right here is a big part of my community. I guess, I had to, I was wired. Life taught me how to be who I am. Okay. Then I meet the man of my dreams, the man who I'm married to now. We dated a few months, got married rather quickly. And I figured, at this age, you're coming into your 40s, you know what you want, you know what you don't want, you know what you're going to tolerate, you have your ways of being. You've been, 10 years doing things by yourself. And, now, I'm coming into this new family dynamic. I have a child, he has a child, and we're blending. That's the challenge in itself. It ain't no one size fits all. Okay. Prior to getting married, we saw a marital counselor, and like we were in alignment. We talked about things, how we want to do it. We didn't say exactly how we were going to do, we were okay with putting our money all together and paying bills together, and just, we're okay with certain things. But as time goes on, you get debt, now we're trying to pay off debt and just do things. And I don't know, I find myself, I guess, at another stage in my life, and my expectations, my thoughts, and when he voices, I mean, how he thinks things should be biblically, however, just as a family. I hear that, but I tend to not to ruffle feathers, just in my mind, I'm saying what I want to say, but I don't speak it out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here right now, but I was always, being by myself. I was vocal. I'm like this, that, the other. You mess with me, like it was just blunt, maybe, in a loving way. Um, but it's other stages of my life. I can only speak for myself, but life is just,
Mm-hmm.
it throws curveballs, catch this and throw that. Like it's all over the place. Life's messy. Life's beautiful. It's much.
It's
But
a
I
battle.
don't even know what the initial question was, but but I will say that, being here, where we are right now, and just time to self-reflect, time to think about, what wires us, you know, and being able to be transparent or vulnerable with one another, your partner, whoever it may be. It's important. I didn't get married to be a robot and be like, yes, sir, or do as you say. I'm my own person with my own thoughts. And this person, whoever, my spouse or best friend or whatever, we may feel a certain way about something or feel how certain things should be handled. But I haven't been saying how I really feel. And I need to. So that way, he, my other half, we are one. So he understands me. And somehow we got to get to this middle ground where I'm sorry, I'm a little emotional. But I'm just dealing. Like, it's not only financial, it's so many areas in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon me, I'm a Marine. Yes, retired, but I'm human. I am all of the above. Okay, like I will kick,
Mm-hmm.
knock doors down, and you want me on your team, but I'm many things. So, but yeah.
Yeah.
See, I feel
There's
like
balance.
being a Marine. Go ahead.
Mhm.
I was gonna say, like, I feel like, having that title of Marine sometimes, like, I carry it around, like, my friends, my family, everything else, that's great. But then when it comes to guys, like, nobody takes me seriously. And the thing is like, I feel like I have almost put myself in that place as well because, I've accepted and I've tolerated and I've sat back. I can be a strong, independent, like get out there, do everything by myself. I don't need nobody kind of person. But I end up getting in these relationships and I kind of sat back and I try and let them take the lead and them take because I'm so tired of always taking the lead and always doing everything by myself. And
It's
so, yeah,
it's
go
a
ahead.
balance.
happy medium.
It's
Yeah.
it's a balance. But one thing that I've got to learn, and it's easier to say, you know, to anybody else, you do it like this. It's easier when you're looking yourself in the mirror. You need to be honest with yourself. I need to be honest with myself. We're doing a little project over here with, we have a mask. We have to paint it. You know, on the outside of the mask is
How the world sees you.
how everybody sees you. You're confident, you're strong, you know, you've got it all together. You know, inside, how do you like, and then inside the mask, you got to put, how do you feel about yourself? Like, how do you see yourself? And it's like, I'm not so outspoken, or like, I'm many things. I could be happy one moment, I could be, you know, night and day almost sometimes. Like, it depends in what realm, what place I am, what space I am, and what's going on in my life. I shit, just put a roller coaster inside of my mask.
We tend to be a lot harder on ourselves internally than we are externally. There's so much pressure we as women go through because of societal expectations we have, and then the expectations we have on ourselves. Navigating this space is different. Navigate, you know, finding a new normal. It can be difficult. JW, when you was asking that question, if you can repeat that question again, I want to make sure I clarify on that point.
No, I was just saying, you know, if you have conversations like on the big picture before you get married, how does it, like, that was my rule. Like I had my rule of, my expectation was I wanted to be on the same page on the big things and not sweat the small stuff. And so I don't know if that, like, maybe I'm old fashioned or old school,
No.
but
No.
like, I think those are important things. And then you bring up another point about independence and how much independence do you grant each other. Like, I'm big on being, like, one of my other rules was my lifestyle, what I do for a living is very complicated. I was, at the time when I got married, I was a professional cyclist. So I traveled between 26 and 32 weeks a year. And there would be like 6-week stretches where I wouldn't be home. And that's not everyone's cup of tea. Like, some people have a hard time dealing with that.
It's a
And so
tall
I had
ask.
I like a deployment.
Yeah, we want
So
affection and attention.
I had a rule that we didn't get married for over a year because I wanted the person I married to understand what she was getting herself into, because I wasn't going to change. That's how I made my living, and I made a good living doing it. And if you weren't on board with that, we were never going to work. And my parents got divorced when I was 10 years old, and I was like, I don't want to deal with that. And so I don't want to put my kids through that. I don't want to put myself through that. I want to make sure that whoever I decide to marry is like, it's a strong bond. And it's kind of ironic that both me and my brother's been married for like 35 years and I've been married for 27. So maybe we're good pickers. I don't know.
I think
I've been married
It's a
3
beautiful
different
thing.
times.
Yes.
So yeah.
So
But like my current wife was divorced before we met, and it didn't even factor in at all into the relationship at all. And it was, like I said, it was more important that she understood what she was getting into. And, you know, it's only gotten more crazy when I started doing this veteran stuff. And so it's like, she has to share me with the world. So like, there's a certain amount of independence that you need. And I think a little bit self-confidence, you know, to me, and what it matters is, where do you lay your head at night? And do you know where that person is laying their head at night? And do you have that kind of relationship? But that's what I was trying to just get at. And then, like I said, she brought up the point of the thought about independence, how much, like you talked about financial thing, like you have your joint bank account and some couples, the man or the each spouse has their own personal account, and then you have the joint account that you pay all the bills and everything. That works for
We're
some
trying to
people. It doesn't
figure
work.
that out.
Well,
Like,
I think it comes, well, obviously it comes down to trust and what kind of relationship you have.
Yeah.
Because like, again, I had a very complicated life. So I always say I'm a hard guy to love, but if you do it, it's a great ride. I mean, the people that I've met, like Brittany and now you guys and Anna, and I just meet wonderful people, and we've had a lot of success in helping people find the right road, if you will, and get people connected and I've built this amazing community of people. And she chose not to be that involved. And I think that's great. Like whatever makes her happy doesn't bother me, that, because it is kind of rough sometimes when you have someone and you help them, you change their life, and then next thing you know, they have a PTSD episode and they're cussing your name, and they're, and if you're an outsider, you might, well, man, that guy's really ungrateful. And it's like, no, they just struggle with, like you said, life is like,
A whole roller coaster. Whole roller coaster.
it's a wild one.
Yeah, I think if you go into a relationship and you already have a child and some assets, you have to keep some things separate.
Yes.
You can't just blend it all together, because you choose your partner. Your kids, you don't get to choose. They're stuck with you for life. But the person that you marry, they can choose to leave. So you need to make sure you're always protected. That's why I'm a huge believer in prenups, and I even think the conversations you have when you're in the prenup process bring up so many big points before you get married, that if I didn't do that with my husband, I would not understand his psyche whatsoever. When he didn't want me to make me the beneficiary of all of his accounts, I thought, well, who else is going to be your beneficiary if it's not me? And he was thinking, well, maybe I want my mom and sister to have something if it's, God forbid, something happens to me. I understood, like, oh, he wants to make sure certain family members would be okay. And I actually respect him for that. When just hearing that I was not going to be a beneficiary to every account, I got really pissed off. But, having the conversation and understanding where that thought process goes. And now there's very affordable ways to have prenups. You can get one through, my friend has a company called Hello Prenup. I think it's like $600 versus thousands of dollars where people used to have to spend to do that. Even just like online, Google what questions they ask in a prenup, just have those conversations before really getting serious. And now I encourage couples, before getting engaged, have the prenup conversation, talk about those bigger things.
No, I was just going to ask, at what point do you have the prenup conversation? Because we just saw that, I think it was Dak Prescott, the quarterback of the Cowboys, him and his fiance broke up because of the prenup thing. And it's like, at what point?
I think once you say, I love you, okay, let's talk. I think, at the height of when you are most in love and things are going well, before you're deciding, okay, this is my person forever, we're thinking this could be something, but we haven't made that decision yet. You have to talk about finances, health, how are we going to be, helping your family forever if they need help? If there's children that came into the relationship, who's paying for that college tuition? If there's debt coming into the relationship, who's going to be handling that? I mean, there's a lot of big things. Unfortunately, we live in a world where those have to factor into relationships. And yeah, I think sooner the better. You don't want to get too far along and find out there's some skeletons.
So that's a great point that you put in. Because for myself, I want to say these conversations, again, were never had. Again, if you look at the way our country was built culturally, and when I say culturally, I probably should say about generationally.
30 years ago.
No, not even just 30 years ago, 50 years ago. In the 30s, the 40s, World War II, then also, talking about the 60s and 70s when the women's movement started kicking in, everything changed and shifted. Again, we were at home, married, raising the kids, cooking the dinners, things of that nature. We did not have legally legally, we did not have any power.
Mm-hmm.
Every decision that needed to be made, even to make a bank account, all the way into the 70s, you either had to have your father or your husband's they sign off on that. Your doctor could not tell you anything unless your husband or father was present. That was, again, that ended the 70s. Don't have me do my math right now, but more than 40 years, 40 some years ago. So again, so many changes, so many adjustments that has to be made. Now these conversations are prevalent. When it comes to when you're saying about prenup, prenup seem to have been a yeah, only for rich people. Then it was just such a dark stain. Like if you're a woman and you got if a man come to you about a prenup, he doesn't love you because all he cares about is money. And if you love me, you know, you would care about me for this, that, and the third.
If doesn't sign it, all she wants is money.
Right. And but now you have it, you're seeing marriage is ending less than a year. And then financially, the men are almost ruined, if not ruined, because of what they fought. So it's this constant battle. So having to have these healthy discussions about what, you know, protections are, you know, for that is definitely needed before anyone says I do.
Those fixes.
You have a prenup. Your state decides your prenup.
Exactly.
So there is a prenup. It's either you want control or you don't want control, and you should know in your state what the laws are. Because it's in Texas, if you do get divorced and you're a woman, it's going to be a lot different than if you get divorced in California.
Oh my gosh, that's why a lot of people like to get divorced in California because you know their rate is it's more than half. So I know I can speak for myself because I saw I grew up in this. I mean, I was born in the South. You know, I'm a Louisiana baby. I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, but I was raised in Chicago, Illinois, right? So I always say I'm Southern bred, Northern raised. You know, so I got to see two different sides of culture. And there's a reason why I say this, because my family down South understood about marriage and commitment and family sticking together no matter what. Whereas my family up North, you know, not a lot of good examples. Matter of fact, rarely ever any good example.
They ain't sticking it
together. So because of that, I was fearful to get married. I mean, I desired to be married, but some of the men I picked, it was like, no, you're not cool. But I always had this stance: you're not gonna live with me. I'm not gonna live with you unless we are married. Because I would see how things change when they lived together. And it was just such a huge issue. And I could not have that, you know, could not have that at all. So it makes me a little uneasy. So now I'm like, we have to have these conversations before we make this step. You know, I see a lot of my girlfriends who got married in their 20s are now divorced. And it's like, what went wrong? A lot of it was got married and it was either money or infidelity or some form of mental, emotional, or physical abuse. And so I couldn't understand that. So when I was younger, I was attending this ministry called Singles Pleasing the Lord. Now I bring this up because during my struggles in my 20s, you know, again, that desire to be married was so strong that, you know, you're willing to let something slide. I was definitely willing to let some of them red flags fly, except for you cannot live with me. I'm not mingling nothing, you know, that my independence was strong with that. But everything else, it was like, you're not paying child support for your 3 kids. There might be good reason. You know what I'm saying? Like stupid stuff. But when I was attending those ministries, we were having these hard discussions. Beth was saying about how do you raise your kids if you're coming into a blended family? You never think about that on the wedding day. People think that
you're not
everything ends.
thinking for 8 years from now, you know,
Yeah.
the next stage, you know, you
So-
got attitudes or whatever.
So that ministry helped me to think about that. How do you raising your kids? What are you doing as far as finances? Do you think it's smart to marry somebody that has a lot of debt? You may want to sit there and think about that. Are you guys at different faith branches? You know, because there are people who are Muslim that marry Christian, or Hooters, or you know, like, does that really work for you? You know, whatever the case may be. When I was young, that kind of opened my eyes about having to have these honest and upfront conversations. Nobody was doing that back then, but that at that time, this ministry still does now. But I like to see it how we're now having more and more of these conversations, because it is absolutely needed. Because people think the wedding is the end all, be all, but that's just the beginning. That is just the beginning. So for me, I'm trying to prepare as much as possible for when that time comes, if that time comes, because, you know, some of these folks scare me. So
Yeah, that's why you have to meet their friends and their family and coworkers. You got to make sure everyone has the same story, that, you know, because people can say whatever they want to, they can put whatever they want online, but when you meet people that are in their inner circle, they'll tell you a lot more real information than you'll probably ever get from the person that you're dating, because they want to show you the best version of themselves. So, I mean, if you're dating someone and it's been at least 2-3 months, you haven't met anyone that's close to them, that's definitely a red flag. I had a friend, two of my friends actually met the same person in New York, and he was, you know, charming. He was good looking. He said he had this fancy finance job and he lived in a very expensive area. And my friend that dated him, you know, she asked, like, oh, can I see your apartment? And he said, oh, no, actually, I have my sister staying there. Okay. And then, you know, he always wanted to stay at her place. And eventually she was like, something doesn't feel right. So she pretended to be a delivery person and went to the building that he worked at, pretended to deliver something to him. No one by that name there. Went to the apartment he said he lived in, found the super, no one by that name there. And it turned out he was just a con artist. He was living at home with his mom. He had got laid off. And because he was so good looking and charming, not one, but two of my friends fell for him within, you know, a 3-month period. And I think that's the red flags were there, but you see what you want to see. But if she had insisted on, no, I need to see your apartment now. No, I need to, you know, speak with a good friend of yours. I need, you know, I want to talk to your mom, something. And he's like, oh, you're crazy. Then great, good riddance. But if he has nothing to hide, he'd be like, great, yeah, let's do lunch with my mom. You'd love for you to meet her. So that's how I think you can suss things out early on to make sure the person, you know, is giving you correct and truthful information. And another thing you said is interesting is dating the South versus the North, is religion, you know, versus dating in a religious environment versus a secular environment. It has very different results in dating. And we do see that people that marry in a more religious setting, they tend to stay married. The divorce rates are lower. Although, you know, you can argue that, well, maybe their divorce is argued against and it's not okay in those cultures, and women are actually oppressed. That could be true for some, but I do think there is something around saying a vow that means something to you, and you're saying it in front of your family and friends and God, that I think that people do tend to take it more seriously. It's less of an option to back out of the marriage. That's why I was so surprised that in the military, that when two service members are married to each other, divorce rates even higher, because I feel like who else can relate to you more than someone else has been through the same things. And, you know, you really know, like, for better or worse, like, worse could really happen in this situation. Most of us that get married, our partner isn't going to lose a limb or going to have a really traumatic experience in their lives. So I found that stat very interesting.
because we were kids. We're kids. And the education, the training we're looking at our leaders and our seniors, and some of them folks that were married should have stayed single.
Mm-hmm.
Another reason why I had stayed single. I saw things no 19-year-old should see. And for me, because of my beliefs, my values, hey, why are we doing this? How can you say you're living out these values as Army, Marine, Air Force, but yet you don't have a problem cheating on your spouse. Why is it when we say what happens in deployment stays on deployment? This ain't Vegas. we ain't Vegas. Like, what are we doing here? So
Shouldn't happen in Vegas either.
yeah, it shouldn't. It really shouldn't. But it just, that kind of turned me off. And so
Mhm.
you have to find your own way, of like, again, standing firm in your boundaries,
Mhm.
standing firm
Yeah.
in your boundaries and, looking at it. Because for me, in the 25 years that I've been in, I can tell you, I have about 5 or 6 good friends who are married, stayed married, and pretty much are faithful. There might have been a couple little issues in the beginning, but
Mhm.
they grew to be committed. And I was just like, wow, they do exist. You get what I'm saying? It
Yeah.
do. They do exist. Yeah, it's just, it's one of those things.
I think that,
I don't know if they can hear you. I don't know if Mother Star, they can hear you. Here, I'm gonna switch over.
hi, I moved because I'm cold. I think when we have these conversations, it's often when we're older. So when do we get a chance to learn this information? Because some families aren't in the place where they haven't learned it, so they don't teach it. So
Mhm.
I am divorced, and I didn't have conversations ahead of time. And I married someone who had children, and it started out with 2 children, and I was teaching school. So trained in child development. I am woman, hear me roar. Surely I can handle someone else's kids. I do that for a living. And I was married for about 6 months, and his daughter came to live with us at 14. And as you know, that's a hard age
Mhm.
anyway. And then Mother's Day came around, which just so happened to be on my birthday. And he ended up, I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm doing everything. I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I'm doing laundry, I'm doing activities, I'm doing this, that, and the other, basically being the mother. And then Mother's Day came around, and I, all cheesing, what, want to get a card? Nothing. And I mentioned to him, well, why didn't you get me a card? And a stake through my heart. He said, you're not her mother. But I was doing every single solitary thing, even
Oh,
leaving my job to go pick her up at school. And
Mhm.
You
so
played the role.
was doing the role, and I was fine with it because I felt like just because he had kids didn't mean that he couldn't be in a relationship. So my point is, when do we as a society teach this information to our young people?
Yeah.
That's where I think it needs to start, because I never thought about, well, when you marry someone as a non-parent, and that's a whole nother can of worms. A non-parent, although I was trained in child development, I didn't think as a parent, and I couldn't have thought as a parent. I really felt like his kids should not be coming over here every holiday because I'm off. But as a
so
non-parent, you don't think, I'll speak for myself. I didn't think that there was anything wrong with his kids not coming over when I can sleep in. So I just don't know when we get a chance to teach this information. And then my other point earlier was dating older.
Mm.
So now that I am retired and of the 60ish age group, I have everything that I need, with the exception of I'm not in a relationship. My fiance died 3 months ago. So I haven't had anyone since then. He was really my soulmate. My children are adults. They live separately in different states. I live alone. And so it's like, where am I supposed to meet someone? Because he's surely not at church. There are like 3 men and they're all old, all like 70s and 80s. So I'm not really into the dating apps and all of that. So I guess I'll just keep living independently until he finds me. So
Might need to find a new church. There's more guys.
oh, I need to get another church.
She says you don't want them there from there.
No, I don't mind them being from church, but my church has an older congregation.
Maybe they have a son.
So, oh gosh, no, as old as I am, he would have to be the grandfather. I'm already 60 plus. I know I don't look it,
No.
but you know. So anyway,
Well-
back to the whole relationship. I think it does begin at some point. We need to talk with our young people about these conversations. My husband and previous husband, we didn't talk about finances ahead of time. Now, mind you, I had already been teaching for 12 years. So money really wasn't an issue. But raising children, how are you going to discipline my children who aren't your children? So it's a lot to contend with.
I know. I always thought in high school, why didn't they teach us personal finance? Why didn't they teach us
Not at my school.
personal hygiene?
No.
There
How
were
to keep a clean home?
Yeah, there were never.
They had that when I was in school.
There was home ec.
There was home
Yeah,
ec.
they had
I learned how to
home
make
ec and they had
cookies.
wood shop and they, you know,
Right,
they,
At your
At
school.
your school, yeah.
You know-
we had a finance class, but I wanted to get back to your point about the 14-year-old girl, because that was me. I was 10 when my parents got divorced, and I lived with my mom, and my dad had a new spouse, and she had kids, and so it was like I was not going to tolerate her disciplining me when I lived with my mom. It was my mom's job to discipline me.
Right.
And so that definitely was an interesting dynamic. Like if I would have lived with my dad with her kids and then me and my brother, that might have been a different I might have had a different attitude, I guess. But for me, it was like my mom was my protector and that's who I lived with. And the divorce was less than cordial, shall we say. It was quite a traumatic it was quite a traumatic experience. I think it scarred me for life, I would say.
Yes. Then you
Absolutely.
have to work through it. Now, my ex-husband's ex-wife, who's the mother of the child, she was all for me being involved. It was actually him. And I never thought anything about it because I was still in the honeymoon phase. You know, oh, he's so wonderful. And we never really had those adult conversations, although we were adults. And I really believe for myself, being a non-parent and marrying someone who is a parent, it's a whole nother ball of wax. It really is marrying into a pre-made family.
And age, I think it's easier if the kids are a little bit younger,
Yes.
they just kind of
More adaptable.
automatically go with it. When I married my husband, I don't call her stepdaughter, but only
Your
for
bonus
legal.
daughter.
Sure.
Yeah.
She's mine. She's under my roof. I mean, I clothe her, I feed her, like she's mine. But I didn't give birth to her. And but I would say just with a brief, quick, and we need to continue the conversation. But we were talking about when we got married or whatever, and she had expressed, I was not ready to have another parent. Like, time will do its thing, whatever that looks like.
Right.
Whether, first of all, we are learning in our home, in our environment. If you got a 2-parent, you're kind of blessed to have that. Not everybody, has that. There's
Right.
adopted kids, there's all walks,
Yeah.
even if your aunts or uncles, you see things, from other family members or friends or parents' friends or whatever. You see, or your friends' parents, like, when you see another environment, you're learning from there. Conversations need to happen lovingly.
Mm.
I don't know what other word to use right now.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I think parents make decisions for the children. Children have no say. And I feel like that can feel like a huge loss of any kind of control for the child. So I wonder if, you let the children feel like they have a little bit more of a say in the situation, so they're not just like abruptly put into, a new parent and a new home and a new environment, giving them a little bit more, I don't know, like treating them like they're a person in this situation rather than just collateral damage.
And communication
Yeah,
is
it's
so
it's a tough
important.
Yeah.
it's a tough
Being
situation.
in coming to these women retreats, and we get to meet women from a variety of lives. Some have children, some have who don't, some raise children, siblings, their siblings, kids, their parents, and it's just nice to get together and sometimes know that you're not alone in some of your thoughts. And that's what I really get out of coming to these women retreats, not to delineate men, but I've gone to retreats with men and women, and it's just very different to just be in a women's retreat, military women's retreat,
Veterans,
veterans, and active duty. It's very different than just being in maybe a church circle with women.
No, I agree. I mean, we used to do these 5-day women retreats, and we'd get between 20 and 30 women, and I never attended a single one. It was just the female veterans. Brittany participated in some of them, and the response that we received from the female service members was off the chart, and I know it's important, which is why when I got connected with Anna, I said, hey, we got to do this. This will be kind of cool, and it's been really fun, and we're way over time, but
Oh, yes. And we're talkers. So
Yeah.
once you get us
well,
all
no,
right-
I mean, I'm sure we can go on for another hour without a problem. What I'd like to do, if you want, Beth and Monica, is we can
let me
you
get
know,
Monica back.
we can have one of these like every 4 to 6 weeks or whatever, because there's other topics that we can get into, and there's a lot more groups of female veterans and first responders and things that
Monica's
we
coming
can.
right now. He was saying that, he's wanting to have this more frequent. Come closer. You can sit. Sorry.
Well, no, what I was going to say is, like, if you guys are open to it, like we could schedule these like every couple months and have like an online kind of thing like that. And we can have different topics, but it's generally relationships and just navigating life.
I think that would be great. That would be great. You have my email. You have my email address. And what we can do is do a calendar invite. Probably get James involved, and just, do you want, like, because Project Refit is everybody, men and women, things like that. I just run the women's program, but we can open it up to all men who may be open to this. I think would be good.
No, I agree. I think that, like you said, we can attack this in different ways. And like my thing is trying to address behavioral health risk in especially in the military, veteran, first responder, and family community, understanding these different risks and relationships. It gets into the financial side, which we kind of got into a little bit. It gets into some of these other areas of risk, and then how people, like you heard Brittany say, she got into it her husband ended up going to jail, and it ended up that her brother killed himself because of all that dynamic. And that's the kind of stuff we're trying to address, is trying to
So, yeah, because
figure out these dynamics. They're complicated.
my boyfriend, I mean, I dated, well, I'm gonna speak my boyfriend, my relationship I'm in now, my boyfriend. When he went through his divorce, he went through his dark period, right? He's definitely out of it. I remember him saying that he wished we had me and him reconnected right after he had his divorce, and I told him, no, I'm glad we didn't, because if we did, we wouldn't be together now.
You need the
Because
time.
everyone has to go through a grief season.
Yeah.
You got to go through a grief period, and because he's already, we're on a very good start. Unfortunately, he had a battle buddy that was at his old unit who recently committed suicide. Because that man is going through a divorce. And I guess it was just too much. It was just too much. I have a couple people in my group therapy session that I attend sometimes. There's a couple men who are going through that process, and it is struggles. I think, again, engaging in how to have these healthy conversations, Either it can help you go through the process, like better equip yourself on dealing with either divorce or maybe preventing it, because again, you're having these healthy conversations. Again, like you said earlier, it's harder for men to open up more. But if they know that if they become more vulnerable and be okay in having these conversations, it will help with their spouse or their loved one, the woman, to feel safe. It changes the dynamics of the relationship when both parties are on the same playing field.
And able to express how they really feel.
Yes.
Well, no,
Yeah,
I mean, that's the one thing that I'm famous for, is like these open forums. There's no judgment. People can say what they want to say. I mean, that's one of my hallmark foundational things. I think the idea, if we do this, I want to do this again, that we should get more couples, actual couples, whether they're married or dating, get more couples involved. And I would love to see the dynamic and of getting couples that are both military, and then those that are either or, like the man or the woman is the military and the other one's a civilian, I think. And then some of the wounded guys who the relationship struggles that significantly injured guys go through. Because like when I was doing my program at Walter Reed, the divorce rate amongst the amputees was very, very high, especially the younger couples.
Yeah, because no one teaches you when you say till death do us apart, or better or worse, they don't really know. Yeah. Yeah, it's they think it's just something you state and that's it. But truly getting through that, oh, that's something you get
Commitment. I can honestly speak on.
Yes.
Because I have an amputee husband. Let me get in this real quick.
Here's our
I mean,
resident
for me,
expert.
I knew what I was getting into. I knew what I was, to an extent. You never really know.
Yeah.
But I knew what I was signing up for when, I met Jimmy at the hospital. He'd already been injured. I count my blessings that I didn't have to go through those deployments and wait, every time the phone call rang.
Yeah.
Your breath stops, or get that horrible phone call like his mom did. But we, definitely, have had struggles in that, and you can't ever completely prepare somebody for PTSD. So I find that for me, I knew what I was getting into, but I think sometimes, injuries like that can really put a strain on a marriage.
Yeah.
Well, what I saw was the couples that got married, the primarily male father, spouse figure goes off on deployment, gets blown up, goes back to Walter Reed and is struggling with his rehab. The wife, who's young, is like, I didn't sign up for this. I can't handle this. And they bail out. And that is unfortunately all too common. Now, there were other couples that made it through those situations, but those were few and far between, in what I saw at least. And
And
so,
especially if we'd have like young guys that were 18 years old that had lost their leg and felt nobody else would want to be with them. So they lowered their standards and went with the first girl who said yes, because they thought they couldn't. And I always said, if you really want to be with a girl who doesn't want to be with you, if you have, is that the kind of girl you want to be with?
Yeah.
And I think that was a hard thing for a lot of guys, is they settled afterwards even. But yeah, it did break up a lot of relationships for sure.
yeah, and we didn't even get into that, Anna, about the
Yeah.
settling part, about
I know.
the good settle versus the bad settle.
We'll
Right.
have to get through that for part 2.
Yes. So,
To be continued, yeah.
so definitely shoot an email. See, if you want to schedule, like you said, a quarterly call, virtual call, whatnot. We can make that happen. I think these are great conversations to be had, because again, it does connect with mental health.
So much to talk.
Yeah, so much to talk about. So the better we get in front of this, it will help. It will help. It will help a lot of people. Not having to battle it on the back end. So thank you guys so much for inviting us for this.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
This is
It was great to have you guys.
Glad we can make it happen, John.
Yes.
Thanks, Beth, for all your help.
So yeah, I'll look
And
forward
mine.
to your email. I don't want this phone to cut off on you because it said I had low battery.
No, we're way over budget. Thank you
Okay.
guys, and
Enjoy your
until
retreat.
next week,
Thank
hope
you.
Okay.
springs eternal.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Take care.